In this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at the Elegoo Neptune 4 Pro. So in this video, we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started. Alright, so the Neptune 4 Pro comes in this box. It's a pretty good size, not too big. So let's go ahead and open it up. So we're packed with dark, soft foam. And we got everything nestled in here. So all of our accessories and parts are in here, and then we got the gantry on this upper layer. So we get a power cord, looks like about 4 feet long, US type. The screen holder, that's magnetic. The spool holder, which comes in 2 pieces. The external parts cooling fan, which has 4 fans. Yeah, we have a little plug here and on and off switch. Very nice. And here we have a bag, which has a lot of stuff in there, and we'll go through this in a second. So let's go ahead and pull out the gantry, which is the upper portion. And this looks quite familiar, the design, materials. Now the big difference, on the X-rail here we can see there's metal rail linings for the all metal roller. So yeah, it's metal on metal, very high precision, and should be much more durable. So that's a great upgrade. We do have dual Z-axes, which are tethered on the top with this belt. And we're gonna take a closer look at everything in a bit. So that's our first layer, very nice padding. Below that, we can see we have the base and also our screen here and our hot end assembly. So let's check this thing out, as it comes separate now that we need to pre-install. It's kind of nice because we can take a closer look. And here we can see the back, which we have this junction board. This is where the main cord comes in. Our heat break, dual parts cooling fans on the side here. The heat block insulated with the sock and the nozzle. On the top, we can see a gear there, and this is where our filament goes in with a release arm for the extruder. All right, so the front actually slides off. And here we can see a little better the whole motor, and that's for the extruder. Here we have a little fan underneath there. That's the heat break fan that sucks air here and then blows through the back out. Very interesting. And yeah, very nice design. The extruder is all inside there. So if we look underneath, we also have an LED light there. So yeah, very nicely built and engineered and constructed. We also have the leveling probe here. So yeah, very cool. And definitely a well-built part. So here we have the screen. It's still the same with pretty large bezels, but I guess the only thing I wish is they would downscale it a bit so it's easier to hold and pick up. But other than that, these are great. And Elegoo has been using these on the Neptune printers for a bit. And I'm guessing they haven't upgraded yet because they want to keep the whole system as price friendly as possible. And on the very bottom, we have the base, which is also quite familiar and looks great. And we do have the flexible PEI sheet, which is awesome. So let's move this out of the way. And that looks like everything for the box. And we're gonna bring the base back in, and I'm gonna lay it down upside down so we can see here what's underneath. So we have the power supply over here, and then on this side we have a cover where all of our electronics are. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this off so we can see what's inside. And before we do that, let's take a closer look at what's in this bag. So we get a USB cable, and this is to connect the printer to a computer. We also get an Ethernet cable if you want to use the lane options or the networking, so you can control the printer from a browser. You can hardwire it straight to your router. We get some snippers, and these are really nice, especially for cutting filament on an angle. A little spatula, this could be useful to get underneath the nozzle. A tiny coil of PLA filament, way too small to be useful, but it is included. Some zip ties to organize wiring. We got our filament detector that we'll need to install. A clean out needle, and this could be helpful to unclog a nozzle. A pretty hefty bag of bolts, hardware, things like that. And we're going to use this to assemble the printer. We get some tools like Allen wrenches, Phillips flat screwdriver, and an open-ended wrench. And the last two here is a thumb drive with an extra PTF tubing liner, looks like, and some nozzles. And this thumb drive is going to have like your manual and things like that in there. And here we also have, looks like, a little gift or giveaway with micro USB adapter to USB with card in there. So yeah, we got quite a few things here. Let's go ahead and grab our Phillips screwdriver, and we're going to take off 5 bolts here on top. And actually, guys, they're little screws. All right, so this should just pop off, and there we go. We can go ahead and unplug the fan, which you guys can see is quite large, and this cools off the area underneath where the main board is. All right, so let's take a closer look here. So this is the Neptune's new board, which is running on Klipper. So we got heatsinks on the stepper drivers. They are non-removable and integrated. There's another large heatsink here. Here it looks like we have some kind of eMMC, which is memory or storage. Everything is hot glued, all the connectors. We got power coming in here from the power supply, and everything going out in different directions. Here's our lane input from the side, which is the Ethernet plug, and then all of our USB connections are here, / the screen and the micro SD card. Yeah, overall quite nice and well built. So I'm going to put the lid back on and we'll start the assembly. So maybe you guys noticed that there's no actual paper manual that's included with this printer, and you're going to find the instruction PDF on this card here. I went ahead and put it on my phone. Yeah, this is a pretty good manual, very well laid out. These are all the parameters of the printer. Here it shows us what every part is, all the parts that are included. And then we got step 1 here, and it's not too bad, guys. It's actually quite straightforward of how to put this thing together, and we'll go step by step. So for step 1, they do want us to put the hot end on, but I think I'm going to do that after step 3 because it will be a lot easier to put the hot end on when the gantry is still. And so for step 3, we're going to need 4 HM45 bolts, which are going to be in here, and everything is nicely labeled. That's these guys here, which are black. Let's go ahead and pull this foam out from the bottom, and we'll turn this sideways a bit, and you guys can maybe see here right on top there's like a little groove with 2 holes, and these go all the way down, and this is where our gantry is going to connect. So we're just going to set it right over. Watch out for your little wires there on the back on both sides. Then we're going to grab a bolt, go from underneath, and start it by hand. So to make it easier, you could prop it up with something like a spool of filament or whatever else you got. But yeah, it ain't too bad. Let's go ahead and grab our largest Allen wrench, and we're just gonna run these bolts down, but we're not going to tighten them, so just run them down. And now we can flip around and do this other side. So this wire here is a little bit in the way, but if you just push it to the side, there's enough room. Yeah, guys, not too difficult. Again, we don't want to tighten this, just run it down. And the reason for that is because we want to run our Z-axis all the way down, and we're just going to grab the belt up here and turn it, and that's going to go down. You can also turn the coupler and it'll go down, it's just a little slower. But yeah, we're just gonna go down as far as it goes. And the reason for that is because we want the 2 channels here to be spaced out perfectly before we tighten them. When we bring this down, this should space it out right where it needs to be between the 2 channels. So now we can go back to those 4 bolts underneath and tighten them up. So snug them up pretty well, as this is the only thing holding it up. And we'll do the same thing here. All right, so now we're gonna go back to step 1 and install our little bracket and hot end on the cradle here on our X-axis. So everything we need is in this little baggie relief bracket and the 4 bolts. So I'm gonna bring this up a bit. We actually got 6 bolts, 2 long ones and 4 shorter ones. So let's grab our hot end assembly. You can see we got like little brass bushings. This is where the bolts will go through this piece here on the metal cradle. Now on mine, there is a zip tie here, and I'm guessing this is maybe to warn you to check, make sure this is not loose before you put everything on, as it does appear that these metal rollers are adjustable here. So let's go ahead and get the zip tie off. And maybe you guys can kind of see that we do have a little adjustment there, but on mine it seems like it's perfect, so nothing needs to be adjusted. So we can go ahead and proceed to installing the hot end. We'll literally line up with these 4 points here, just like this. Now probably can see a little better from the back as this lines up. At the same time, our bracket goes here, going on like this. And so the 2 longer bolts will go on the top. Grab the correct Allen wrench, So it is a bit tedious here with holding everything together while trying to put the bolts in at the same time, but obviously it's not impossible. And then 2 on the bottom, which are the short ones. So it is probably not the best angle here, guys, but yeah, they go under here and then 2 right here. Snug them up, make sure you tighten them pretty well, and that's it. And so now we're gonna go back to the front, and then we're gonna grab the last 2 little bolts, and these are gonna go right here, and that's what's gonna hold the cover from sliding off. So yeah, not too hard to figure out here. Pretty straightforward. All right, everything's looking good here and quite solid. So we've done step 1 and step 2 and also step 3. So now step 4 is going to be installing the little side holder for the screen. And that's gonna be on this side, right over here. You can see the 3 threads. So we got the holder here, I'll line up. And then the bag here of bolts that says M420, and there's 3 of them. We can see there's 3 holes. And the one that's close to the metal here is a little hard to get to as it is magnetic, / the wrench is not long enough, as you guys can see, to turn it. So it's a little bit tedious, but obviously doable. And yeah, it'll line up on those holes there. And you guys can see there. So now we're just gonna snug them up. And something to note that the wrenches included do have like a rounded out end. So it's quite easy to screw on an angle as it still continues to work, even on a pretty off-centered path. And our screen holder is on. So for step 5, we're gonna be installing the screen itself, which is very simple. It's literally just gonna sit and magnetize to the holder. And then we're gonna plug the coiled wire right here on the front of the printer, just like that. And for step 6, we got quite a few things going on here. We're gonna install the spool holder. We're also gonna install the wire that goes to the hot end, little bracket with a bolt that holds that down, and also the filament detector. So yeah, a couple things here for step 6. So since we're down here, let's go ahead and do the wire, which is this flat wire that comes out from the side, and it's gonna go here. And actually everything that splits is before the bracket like that, and then everything after is going to the hot end here. So, and this is the cable clamp bracket that comes with a bolt. So it's quite interesting how narrow it is compared to our cable, but we should be able to fit it in there. And on the back of it, you guys can see there's a little nub that actually sits in right there in that hole, and then the other bolt goes in. It's a little interesting looking how it goes, but let's see if we can get it in there. So I think we're gonna have to bunch up the flat wire a bit. So it is quite close to the lead screw and actually wants to touch it at this angle, but that's the way they show. So I think instead of putting the nub into that hole, I'm just gonna butt it against the outside here, as that'll keep the cable away from the lead screw. So for whatever reason, they designed it where it touches the lead screw if you go deeper in. But yeah, I think this right here is perfect and actually keeps the cable exactly where it needs to be. So maybe you guys can see a little better there how I installed it. It was supposed to go all the way over here, but it was touching the lead screw, so I just went and put it on the outside like that. So, and if we go back to the front here, we can see we got plenty of cable. And on the hot end itself, we can spread these little clips and then plug it in. They'll lock in like that. Then we can put the cable into the strain relief bracket, just like that. So if we go to one end, we can see that the cable is definitely long enough to go either way. We can actually pull it back a bit if we need to. But yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, so now we're here on top and we're gonna be installing the spool holder. So we got this main part here, and there's a couple bolts that go down into the frame on top. And these are the M418s, 2 of them. So if we look here, we can see there's a couple nuts that move inside the channel. And what we're gonna do is line up the 2 holes there with those nuts, just like that. So we can see one of them quite easy, and then the other one, if you don't tighten the first one, it should be quite easy also to kind of find. And there we go. So when they're both started, we can go ahead and see about where we need to be, and it's somewhere right in the middle of this logo here. Now, if you can, you might want to go this way a little more if the little wire here allows you, but we'll see in a second. The reason why is because we want to try to center up our spool as much as we can, tighten it up. So if we go from the side, you guys can see we have a little brass insert there, and that's going to hold our filament detector. And so we got the detector itself and a little bolt here that goes through the bracket and then into here. So yeah, we're just going to simply screw the bolt in, and you want to make sure the bracket is in the correct orientation. Tighten that up, and it should be loose, moves around, and yeah, our filament's gonna literally come from the top here down into the detector, rolling on this holder here that we still have to install, and it can go either way, but we need it on this side as our detectors here. So let's go ahead and screw that on. All right, now we can plug in the detector just like that. And looks like there's enough reach. And that's about all we can go this way with the whole thing. But you guys can kind of see maybe. So the filament is going to roll out into the detector and then down into the hot end. And it can flex as it needs to quite easily. All right, and so that was part 6. And now we're going to 7, which we're going to be installing the auxiliary cooler to the back. And then for step 8, we're just plugging everything in, and that's going to be everything for the assembly. So yeah. All right, so looking at the back of the printer of our x-axis, we can see there's 3 holes. Our blower here with the controls going up and the blowing part down is going to connect right here on the 3 holes, just like that. And the 3 bolts are M445s, which will go through the front and then into the holes where they'll thread in. So yeah, pretty straightforward here on installing the external cooler. So we can go ahead and plug it in, and the wire comes here from the side. And actually we probably should have put it through the bracket here with the other wires, but I think I can just slot it in there. And there we go. So we'll plug that in. And if we go to this side where our main cable comes out, we can see we have a couple plugs here, which are both x-axis, one for the motor, which plugs underneath, and the other for the end stop switch, which plugs here on the side. Go to the back to the bottom corner, we can see we have quite a few plugs here. The large one that says Z is going to plug in down here to the motor, and then these just correlate, one's larger and the other one's smaller. I'm going to plug them in just like that. Make sure that they're not in the way of the bed traveling. Everything looks good here. So our wires are all connected already. Just make sure they're plugged in. And then to this corner, we have another Z plug for the motor. And that is all of the wires. And we're pretty much done, except for maybe we need to check the belts. So they're usually a little loose. So there's a tightener here for the Y, and you want to feel it, how tight it is. Don't go crazy tight. And also for the X here, also make sure it's nice and tight. And you want to definitely feel the belt because you can't tell how much you're tightening it just on the knob. So, and as far as the rollers go, they're all pre-adjusted from the factory. Seem to be good for X and Y. Now the rollers that we can adjust are these that ride on the channels for the Z, and mine are actually pretty good and I don't need to adjust them. But if you do have a wrench that you can spin an eccentric nut on the inside here on the 2 that'll go farther and closer. But if your wheels are close, I wouldn't mess with it, as we do have dual Z axis lead screws and everything is quite stable. And as simple as that, guys, we are done with the assembly. So for the next part, let's take a closer look in a little more detail. All right, so the Neptune 4 Pro here looks pretty good on the table. Quite familiar from the last models, except with some pretty major upgrades. So let's start up here on the top. We got the spool holder. It mounts right here to the channel. We got a filament detector that swivels around. Everything's metal here, including these brackets. We can see our pretty unique channels that says Create the Future on them on both sides. Flipping around to the back, we can see we have a tethered belt between the 2 dual lead screws, which I really like this because everything is synchronized together. We can see the filament wire travel through the channel, down and out. We got metal for the ends on both sides. This is the x-axis motor and where it plugs, and also the end stop switch. We got this pretty cool parts cooling fan, which is external. It's got an on and off switch here, and then the power cable. And it is quite smart as it is regulated by the main board. And it does blow right underneath the nozzle. Here we can kind of see the back of the hot end and the metal rollers with the metal strain relief bracket that holds this cable here. And I kind of installed this going here because I didn't want it to be too close to the lead screw as it was touching it on these holes. So yeah. So going down, we have the dual motors here on both sides, our Y-axis motor, and then the end stop switch here. The wire coming from the bed, which is strain relieved very nicely and goes into the back here. Pretty large squishy feet on 4 corners. We do have the power supply back here, which we can see that we can switch between 230 and 115, and looks like it is factory switched to 230. So if you live somewhere where it's 115, you will need to switch that. And we can do that with the provided flat screwdriver that was included. And yeah, just make sure you're at the correct voltage before you power it on. So moving this way, see we got our power input port. It is fused with an on and off switch. Our cable management is very nice for this main cable going up. So going back to the front, here right on the top we can see the relief bracket. Then here we have the input for the filament, and this is the extruder arm to release it. We've got a little gear here that we can see when the filament's flowing, very nice. And going down here we can see blower fan for the parts cooling. on both sides. And behind here, we can kind of see the induction sensor. And underneath, we got the heat block, which is silicone socked with the nozzle. And also we got a little light here. And you guys can see where the fan blows out here on both sides. Also, this little hole here is where you can adjust the tension on the extruder. So going this way, we have the X-axis and stop switch, metal rolled rails, adjustment for the belt here. Going down to the bed, we do have a 225 by 225 by 265 build volume, and the build plate itself is a textured PEI sheet, which does pop off. It is magnetic and it's flexible, and it's just a chrome finish on the other side. But yeah, I love these beds. They work great. Underneath that, we got the magnetic mat, and then our heated aluminum bed, which is not insulated. And for this size, it's not a big deal. The frame seems to be pretty thick and straight. And then we got quality springs with adjuster knobs that are good size. And here in the very front, we got our adjustment for the belt on the Y-axis. Over here, we have the manufacturing label. Pretty clean going here. Unfortunately, no storage anywhere. But right under here, you guys can see we got our micro SD port. And it is kind of hard to get to, sort of, because it's right underneath this. But you're probably going to mostly use the USB drive anyway. And we also have a USB Type-C connection here. And at the very end, we got our port for the screen, which I really like about Elegoo, as they have these removable screens. They're still a little large and the bezels are a little big. I wish they'd make them a little smaller and nicer looking. But still, for what you get, this is awesome. And they just magnetize to the cradle here, and you can pick it up, look at it, and then put it down. And there is a sticker here that reminds us to check our voltage, which we did already. So let's go ahead and peel the screen protector off. So going from the screen this way, you can see we have an Ethernet port, and that's going to be if you want to connect your printer to your router and have access through it through a web portal, which there is quite a few features, especially this being a Klipper printer. So yeah, overall a pretty feature-packed printer. Put this bed back on. I wish there was something to butt against, as it's kind of hard to line it up perfectly every time. But yeah, I mean, the Pro here definitely brings some really cool things like these metal rails with metal rollers on the X and Y, which should really give us more precision and longer life overall. So for the next part, I'm going to plug it in, we'll power it on, preheat it, check, make sure everything works, and level the bed. All right, so I got the printer plugged in. Let's go ahead and power it on. I can hear the fans. We got the logo here on the display. And there we go. So it took about 30 seconds or so to start up. The first thing I'm going to do is go to settings and turn down the brightness under advanced settings here, so I can film the screen a little better. And you guys can see here we can also turn on and off the key sounds. So what's great about Elegoo is that they're able to integrate the Klipper software seamlessly into their design. If you used the Elegoo printer before, this is very intuitive and easy to understand. So here on the main menu, we can see we got print, prepare, settings, level, and our temperature and location parameters there. So let's go ahead and click on prepare, and we'll click home all in the middle. And we'll see, make sure everything works. So Z went up, X, Y, and now coming down. And it looks like that's working also. Down here we can see it says temp. I'm going to click on that, and now we're going to preheat everything. And I'm just going to click on ABS here. And it's going to start preheating 240 on the nozzle and 80 on the bed. And if we go back to the main menu, we can see here that our nozzle and bed are rising in temperature. So yeah, looks like everything is working, which is perfect. So for the next part, let's go ahead and do the bed leveling. And we're going to click on the level here. So it's asking us to confirm. It's going to move into position. And here we get a new menu that shows us the offset. And then we got a couple choices of auxiliary and automatic. So the first thing we want to do is do the auxiliary leveling, which is going to be the manual one with these knobs. And then we'll click on automatic and finish that. So let's click on auxiliary. This kind of explains to you how to do it. We're going to click confirm. And you guys can see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points we can click on the bed to get the nozzle to go there. So you're going to need some kind of piece of paper. I'm just using this little Post-it note. And so what we're going to do is click on 1 and then 2, 3, 4, and just keep going around until it's pretty much perfect. So I'm going to click on 1. So we're going to stick our little paper between the nozzle and the bed. And I can see already that it's too tight. So yeah, essentially what we're doing here is doing manual bed leveling. And what we're trying to do is get some friction in the paper between the nozzle and the bed. So we go to 2. Again, it's too close. And this one's actually completely loose in the back. So yeah, this is why it's quite important to go ahead and do the step and not just start printing. All right, that feels pretty good. We'll go to 3. This one's too loose. There we go. Now we'll go to 4. and this one's too tight. So yeah, they're all going to be a little different. So since we had to adjust them kind of a lot, we definitely need to go around again. So I'd recommend at least 3 times. So let's go ahead and keep clicking all around. So we're back to 1 now. The reason this is kind of important is the closer you get it, the less compensation the automatic bed leveling has to do, and the better first layer you're going to have. So yeah, since we started adjusting, the bed kind of moved around, and so now everything needs to be adjusted again. This is again why it's important to keep adjusting it a few times around. Alright, so we're starting to get really close as everything feels pretty good. It just needs to be slightly tuned. So that means we're ultra close, and you know, if you go at least 3 times, it should get you there. But I just keep going around until everything feels the same. And it's such a tiny, slight adjustments at this point. So yeah, we're pretty much there, and we can go ahead and hit the home button in the middle and see what our home feels like. So mine is just a little bit loose, which is okay, because the auto bed leveling will compensate for any kind of dips or heights in the build plate. All right, so now we're going to go back, and it's actually going to prompt us to do auto bed leveling, which is pretty cool. So we're going to confirm. If you don't get this prompt, just go back and click on auto leveling. So yeah, we're going to confirm to do auto bed leveling. So this is going to take a little while as there's a few points to go through, but yeah, it's just going to go around the build plate and probe it and take measurements, and then when it's printing, it's going to offset that as it's putting the first layer down. And I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a total of 36 points that it's going to take. So all right, and that's all 36 points. So now it's going to set up so we can do our offset, and also down here you guys can see what our variations are between the different points of the bed, and everything is looking really good. Nothing is more than 0.14 looks like, and 0.16, and that corner is a little bit low, but that's okay. It's still very close tolerances. So we're going to grab our little post-it note now and go underneath the nozzle, and we're going to check and see if we need to set the offset any, and looks like we do, and we need to go down a little bit. So we're going to choose the increments that we want to go down. So I'm just going to go very slowly at 0.01. If you're much higher up, you might want to go 0.1 millimeters. So let's go ahead and go down slowly. And actually, I think I'm a little higher, so I'm going to go 0.1 millimeters at a time. There we go, it's grabbed it. Back to 0.01. Now I'm going to go up because now it's a little too tight. And we're starting to be pretty much perfect, I think. Yep, that does feel really good. So you want the same drag that you kind of did all around. So just the papers with some slight drag. So our offset ended up being minus 1.750. So yours is going to be different. Every printer is different. And this is why you calibrate it to each one. So once you do all this, you're pretty much done. And all you got to do is click the back button, and it's going to save everything. So we're going to confirm the save. And we go back to the main menu. So let's quickly go over everything. So we got print here, and this is where it's gonna read the files off of the thumb drive. We got prepare. This is where we're gonna do moving and homing, releasing the steppers. Temperature is our hot buttons for preheating. Let's go ahead and preheat PLA. And extruder is going to give us controls over the load and unload and how much and the speed. So if we go back, we got settings. This is going to be where we can change our language, and we've got quite a few to choose from. Temperature settings. So let's say if you want to change your PLA settings, you can do that here. So every time you preheat it, it'll preheat to what you've saved there. Light control, which we do have 2 lights on this printer. One underneath here, and then one from the top going down. So the headlight is the one up here, and the observation light is the one under here. You guys maybe can see it powered on. We can toggle our fan on and off, motor off, and that's going to release the steppers. Filament detector is turned on. Factory settings, so you can reset everything. About the machine, we can see here the name, the version it's on, the build volume, and also how to contact the company. And on the very bottom, we got advanced settings, and this is where we adjusted the brightness of our screen. So yeah, very intuitive and quite easy here for the settings. And then we have the level button, which we just did all that. So, and down here's our current parameters for the printer. All right, so for the next part, let's go ahead and load some filament. And if you're gonna do high-speed printing, you obviously need rapid filament, which this is a Rapid PLA Plus from Elegoo, and it's in black. So we're gonna try it out today. So they are using like recycled spool made out of paper material, and it is vacuum sealed very well. This looks like a pretty nice filament. You guys can see the finish on this black. So let's pull it out here. We're gonna grab our snippers and cut it on an angle so we can feed it easier. And looking here on the top, The spool will go on the spool holder, and then we're going to feed it through the filament detector, which by the way has a little light that comes on. And then we're going to go down to the hot end extruder. Now, before I put that in there, let's go ahead and go to prepare and move the Z axis up 10 millimeters. So we're going to click on 10 and then Z plus, and that should raise it there. I'm going to click it again to go a little higher, so we can see a little better while we're purging. So we're going to release the extruder with this arm and then feed our filament through, and we could use this crane to push it through, but it's quite simple just to do it manually here, and we'll just push it and we can see we're purging on the bottom. So simple as that. We are loaded and ready to go. Now if you do want to purge it here, you just click on extruder. So let's do 10 millimeters and we'll click on load, and it'll push through that much. You can see the little gear turning here. So yeah. All right, so we are purged. Let's go ahead and move this purging booger out of the way. Let's grab our red thumb drive, which is 8 gig, and we're gonna plug it in right here. And we'll see if we got anything with the printer. So we'll click on print, and we have quite a few here. Okay, so I do see a G code there with the Buddha. And let's see under models. Okay, so it looks like we have STL files probably here. So, oh well, actually there's a PLA test there and a rapid test for 3D Benchy, so maybe we'll do that also. But let's go ahead and start with this Buddha print that all Elegoo printers come with. So we'll just click on that, and it's going to load the preview. So it says it's going to take 31 minutes. So we're going to confirm, and the print starts. So the printer looks like preheating, and it's pretty close to where it needs to be, and it goes ahead and starts. So hopefully our offset is perfect, and we'll get the perfect first layer. And so far it's looking really good. It's purging on the side, and now going for the print. Yep. You guys probably can't really see from that angle, but yeah, it is printing and it appears to be pretty much perfect. Let's go ahead and look at what we can see while we're printing. So we got the model, the name of it, the percentage that's done, and then there's a bar and it says 30 minutes left. Our coordinates for the X and Y, how much time passed. Our nozzle temperature, our bed temperature, the speed 100%, the fan speed, the print speed, which is 95, and the flow rate at 100. So here we can go to settings, pause, stop, or turn off and on the LED. So if we click on that, we have a choice between the two lights. Naturally, stop will cancel the print, and pause will pause it. In the settings though, we can adjust the nozzle temperature and the bed temperature by toggling here, and then down here we can go to the speed and adjust that. Also the flow rate and the fan speed. And under adjustments, we have the Z-axis offset. So if you do need to go a little up or a little down when you start printing, you can do that right on the fly here. And also we have filament detection on and off. And again, we can control our lights from here too. Good options and layout here for the Neptune 4 Pro. Now one thing that I haven't done is actually turned on this auxiliary fan. You guys can't see, but the little switch back here is on off, so I'm going to go ahead and click it on, and the whole thing turns on and got a bit louder again. So on the display, if you click on the fan icon here, you're going to have these 3 modes come up. So you can have mute, normal, or violent. I'm not sure exactly what it's on right now, but if we click on mute, it actually slowed down. It's still blowing good amount of air, but it really toned down the noise level. So normal, and then we got violent, which is super fast. Yeah, I'd probably use either normal or muted, you know, depending on how much cooling you need. So right now we're not printing crazy fast. Probably mute would be more than enough. And if you don't want it at all, you can just turn it off here on top. So we're actually printing at pretty high speeds. We got a 154 there. Oh, there we go, like 200 millimeters a second. So yeah, it's, you know, boogieing along pretty well. But as far as the little Buddha's concerned, it looks like it's going down pretty much perfect there. So Alright, so our first print is done. By the way, the screen does dim. If you click it, it goes brighter. It took 38 minutes, so a little longer than it said it would. So we can print again or return, which is pretty cool. So we'll click return and it goes back to the home menu. So it's cooled off. And wow, popped off super easy. So yeah, this PEI sheet works perfect. I didn't even have to flex or nothing. It just pops right off when it cools. And the brim also came off pretty easily. So let's look at the bottom here. We can see that we might be a little bit too far from the build plate, but actually maybe not. It does look pretty good. Maybe we can go down just a little bit. But as far as the print itself, and you guys can see how well this filament laid. It's got a nice sheen to it where we can really see the layers. Very accurate. Nothing weird, no ringing or any crazy ghosting anywhere. Lots of detail and an excellent print overall. All right, well, I'm pretty impressed right off the bat, which I knew that I would be because this is the Pro version of the 4, and the original 4 did very well also. So I think for the next part, let's go ahead and go to the print, and we'll go to models. There is a flower pot. I don't think I want to print that in black. A tool holder. Actually, this is a useful thing. It's a little bracket that connects to the back side here that you can put all of your tools that was included. So let's go ahead and print that. That would be pretty useful. So we're going to go ahead and print out this tool holder. And while it's doing that, let's go to the computer and slice our next print. All right, so I got the thumb drive plugged in. Let's go ahead and open it up. So we got a user manual in PDF. And this is what we looked at when we built the printer. It's a very good manual and explains the assembly and software and anything else you need to know about the printer. Here we have software, and this is where we're going to download our slicer, and it's available for Windows and Mac. I already have the slicer installed from before. We also have a model folder. They give us an STL here of the Buddha and also the G code. Yeah, everything here is available with the G code. So let's go ahead and go to the slicer. So once you install it, you're going to open it up. So when you first start it, it's going to prompt you to this add a printer window, and we're going to go to non-network printers and go under Elegoo here and find our printer, which is the Neptune 4 Pro. I'm going to select that, click next, and we can see here our build volume, and all of our parameters are preset for the 4 Pro. So let's go ahead and throw a benchy in there, and we can see it on the plate. So if we select it by clicking on it, we can see the menu on the side here comes up, so we can move it around, either dragging it or by entering in millimeters. We can also scale it, make it larger. Also here in percentages or millimeters. And we can also rotate it any direction we want. Here to the right, so we are in the normal 0.2, and if you click on these little bars right here, you want to choose advanced, as you're going to have more options to adjust and to look at. So this is our layer height here. We're just going to leave it at 0.2, and everything here should be preset to the 4 Pro, but there might be a few things we will adjust. So far everything's looking good. Our temperatures are 220, which makes sense, and our speed is at 250. You can adjust accordingly, but yeah, 250 should be a great speed, and it's already very fast for this type of printer. So yeah, everything actually looks really good. We do have retractions at only 0.5, which I think should be fine, but if you do get some stringing, you can bump this up to 0.8 or even 1 millimeter to help reduce the stringing. But yeah, guys, everything else looks great here, except for the brim, which I normally don't use. I'll use skirt, and usually I have 3 line counts for that. Yeah, guys, looks like the 4 Pro here with the basic profile that they include is pretty much perfect. So what we're going to do is click the slice button, and it's going to slice the model. And you guys can see it's going to take 38 minutes to print this thing out. And so since we got our thumb drive plugged in, it's going to give us an option to save straight to it, or you can save it to your computer. So we're just going to save to removable, and it's saving, and you can inject it straight from here. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics, guys. So let's go ahead and right click or double click, clear the build plate, and we'll go ahead and throw a calibration cube and also slice it. And that's only going to take 12 minutes. So yeah, you can see, guys, at 250, it's very reasonable and quite quick. So we got a calibration cube, we got the 38-minute benchy that we sliced, and also this is the 18-minute benchy, which actually finished a little faster. And then we have the little tool holder back here. So yeah, let's start with this calibration cube. So this only took like 12-13 minutes, and what's cool is that we can see the axes. So this is the X, quite clean. This is the Y. Also quite good. We do have a little bit of ghosting. It is quite a large bed that has to move very fast at these speeds. And then we got the X wall and the Y wall. So yeah, the X and Y are pretty similar. We got the bottom and the top. yeah, great print for the calibration cube. So here we have the benchy we sliced, which is the 38 minutes, but it actually printed in 40 minutes. So in the back we can see there it says 3D benchy or hashtag. So yeah, it's a little bit distorted, but you know, this is 40-minute benchy here, which is pretty quick. And yeah, everything looks pretty good. A little bit discolored from the speed adjustments. Very minimal ghosting or vibrations. We do have some a little bit. But overall, you guys can see very solid benchy here for 38 minutes that we sliced ourselves. So let's look at this actually 17-minute benchy, which is impressive. Oh wow, it just popped right off. Now for 17 minutes, it's quite surprising how well this thing came out. So the back here looks pretty good. It is quite hollow, so it's much lighter. So there was a lot less infill. The walls look very decent, pretty much the same as our other benchy. We do have a little bit more inconsistencies and gaps. So I think a lot of stuff was turned off and optimized for the speed. And again, this thing feels ultra light. But as you guys can see, it is possible. So we got the 38 minutes and the 18 there. So yeah, again, guys, it's even hard to tell. And actually maybe looks a little better here on the bottom on the faster benchy. And then the slower, we have a little more vibrations there. So anyways, whatever was done to the 18-minute benchy, it was definitely optimized for speed and did a great job because it doesn't look bad at all. It actually looks great. But, you know, it's obviously not as sturdy and could probably easily break if I just put pressure on it, as it is extremely light. And here we also have a bracket that we printed. And it looks quite good, and this is actually to put all your tools in here that comes with the printer, and it clips on the back here, so you can put all your Allen wrenches, spatula, micro SD cards, thumb drive, and even the snippers hang here on the side. So yeah, we're not going to go through putting all that in, but it's quite intuitive and nice that they include this with the printer. Alright guys, so these are all the prints that we printed on the Neptune 4 Pro. So the printer is quite capable and definitely quite a solid printer just out of the box. So we printed quite a few things here. We've seen all these down here, which was our test prints. So let's go to some of our PLA prints, which we have this little octopus, and there's no issues whatsoever sticking to the bed and then popping right off. It works extremely well here on this printer. And by the way guys, everything was printed in 0.2 layer height and set at 250 millimeters a second on the slicer. So yeah, all of these were printed very quickly, and you guys can see with that kind of speed, it's quite impressive how well everything's going down. Now you can speed up this printer and make it go much faster, but I kind of just use the default, which goes about 3 times faster than a more normal 3D printer that's not running on Klipper. And you guys can see the detail is quite incredible and everything is just great, and it's impressive that you can print prints like this in under an hour. So here we have a pretty cool print, as this is a frog with a tri-color filament. I like to print these little frogs as they got very intricate details between the little paws here, and we can see overhangs are great. Cooling is pretty much excellent, I would say, on this printer. No stringing. I did bump it up to 0.8 retraction, and you can go all the way to 1 if you need to. And yeah, it looks quite incredible, and all the layers are sitting very well, and this did not take long at all. Don't remember exactly, but it's literally under 20 minutes. Really good at these high speeds. Here we have another print also in a tricolor, and this is a Squirtle, and you guys can see again the layers are sitting really nice. Sometimes when the lighting hits it just right, you can kind of see the layers, but it is quite good overall considering the speed. There is a little bit of layering here and there, but it's quite minor. And yeah, very nice print here of the Squirtle. And if you're looking for speed with good accuracy. The 4 Pro here has no issues there. And speaking of accuracy, here we have a print called Gear, and this is a functional part. And I like to print this to test out how accurate the printers are. And you guys can see that's the bottom, looks great. This did break loose, but it's not perfect. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but I noticed that this printer is not dimensionally putting the layers down exactly in a circle, or at least is what it seems like. But it does still spin, but we can kind of see there's signs of something not completely squared off, as we have a gap here and then no gap here and a gap there. So yeah, this could be a little bit off-centered, the axes, and what's causing that. Maybe just needs to be realigned with a square. So that does happen. It is something that's fixable, but needs to be fine-tuned, which is a little unfortunate to see on the Pro model, but it is a coincidence and it does happen once in a while. So, and we do have another print here that also proves that this is not completely round, as I have a hard time spinning. This is actually a super cool print, as it's an engine with a wheel on the outside, and when you spin it, I guess you kind of hold it down here and you can spin the wheel. You can see the pistons kind of going, and you got like a gear here that goes through these teeth here. So yeah, it's a really cool design, but you guys can see it's not really running right and it's having a hard time. And the reason for that is because it's not a circle, and I had to kind of play with this a lot to even get it to move. So yeah, now going to something a little more fun is we printed this bear. So my wife loves these, so I'm printing a few here and there for her, and this time we printed in white, and you guys can see it looks really good. Overall, the retractions are staying pretty nice, as there's no stringing practically. There is a little bit of layering here and there, you can kind of see at the right lighting, but overall it looks really good. So this was also printed with 250 millimeters a second, just like everything else. And yeah, you guys can see the bottom here, we have a little brim to hold it down, and there was no issues again with the build plate. The PEI just works really good here. But yeah, this bear here turned out really good and didn't take too long to print either. I think about 5 to 6 hours, something like that. So now, speaking of a stress test, we have this print here, and this is kind of like a fabric-y print. So these are a lot of little pieces that have to combine together, and this puts an immense stress on the extruder, which has to retract thousands of times to print something like this. And not only that, this also shows how well the PEI sheet works, as every little piece stuck and none of it popped off. And this is a 200 by 200 sheet here. It's quite incredible how well this printer did, with no mistakes anywhere, nothing popped off, and everything is just literally perfect. And this was also printed at high speed of 250, so pretty incredible, and great to see that the extruder can take that kind of punishment with all those retractions. So here we have some wheels, and these are actually printed ABS. I did slow it down a bit to 200 millimeters a second, printing at 270 on the temperature and 90 on the bed, which had no problems of getting to 100, and also having no problem sticking at those temperatures, not warping, as this is ABS. And yeah, you guys can see we do have a brim, we do have supports underneath that should just break loose. Let's see. All right, almost perfect. There's a little piece still in the center there, which comes out, and we can see, so I wouldn't say too perfect down there in the spokes, as we are a little bit stringy, but you know, considering how fast we were printing, it seemed like maybe it didn't all stick as good as it could have. Now maybe turning up the heat to 280 would help, but who knows? That's something that you gotta time in. Once you start speeding things up, a lot of things change, and I'm not used to printing anything, especially ABS, that fast. But yeah, it worked and it looks good and seems quite solid. So yeah, these are little RC car wheels that we use for our drift car. And so I did want to try some TPU, which we have this little spaceship here. Now there was an issue with this printer, you guys can see there's a major under extrusion going up from here. So it looks pretty bad, but down here we can see it's pretty much perfect. And this is TPU, so it will bend quite easy, but we are kind of breaking because of the under extrusion. But where it did do well, you guys can see it lays down the TPU very nice. So there's no issue with actual TPU printing, as we do have direct drive. The issue is with spiralized printing. And what's funny about that is it's only when something is small like this, because we have another print here you guys can see, which is also spiralized, and it did much better than this one. Klipper software at the moment, for some reason, can't handle spiralized mode on a smaller diameter, which is kind of interesting. And I hope that with some updates it'll get fixed. But yeah, this is what happens. Printer's good at TPU, but not so great at spiralized mode. So, and we'll be able to see that here at this spaceship, which is, by the way, still stuck to the build plate. See if we can break it loose without moving everything off. And there it goes. So this spaceship is actually the full height or almost the full height of what this printer is rated for, which is 265. But I do believe it can go a little more to almost 270, but this is 265, so you can easily do that. So maybe depending on how much you have your bed compressed, you can squeeze out a little more. In any case, here we can see the bottom stuck very nice, and you guys saw it popped off. And if we look at the walls, overall they look pretty decent. There is a little bit of vibrations there, you can kind of see them, so it's not perfectly perfect layers, as there's something a little strange going on in spiralized mode on this printer. And what's interesting is that it did do fine all the way from the bottom to the almost the very top until it got to right here, and this is where we started under extruding again. To a smaller diameter starts having trouble. So very strange, but yeah, overall the print is done and it's pretty strong and did complete, which is good, but again, not really its strong point in spiralized mode. So yeah, overall it's quite a capable printer, and the package it comes in is very nice, as it's very easy to get started with, and the Pro bringing the metal rollers with rails really gives it the longevity for the long haul. I do love that it has dual Z-axes tethered with a belt, filament detection, a nice light bar underneath, which I just realized that was off, and it is quite bright and makes it a little nicer. This external fan here does a great job of the extra cooling, and I like how you can control it on and off manually and also in the display. We do have a 300C hot end with 100C capability on the heated bed, so you can do really high temperature printing. The direct drive works perfect. All the wiring is very clean. High quality metal parts everywhere. We do have another light under here. You got adjusters on the X and Y for the belts. USB connection, also a type C there. Great screen that's portable. You can grab it and look at it. Very responsive. The Klipper software is great and seamlessly integrated where anyone can use it. We do have an Ethernet port here that if you do connect it to your router, you can control the printer completely from a web page. Huge rubber squishy feet on 4 corners. Automatic bed leveling compensation. Only thing I would have loved to see is maybe a drawer here, but they do have this little accessory that goes in the back where you can put all your tools in, and then they kind of stay back there. So that's quite clever and cool also. So yeah, overall I really like this printer, and if you want something that just works out of the box and is quite trouble free and easy to put together and use, and has a very stable Klipper integration, the 4 Pro here definitely is worth looking at, as it does build on the 4 with its extra features. So if you guys are interested in this printer, I'm going to have some links in the description. Check it out. If you did enjoy this video, then hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, check out my 3D printing playlist. I'm sure you'll find something interesting there. And also stay tuned for more, as we are getting into quite interesting territory with 3D printers, and everyone seems to be jumping on Klipper. So there's a lot more interesting stuff coming up. And if you made it to the end, I really do appreciate you watching, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Peace.